So, may I ask you, could you indicate with a pen the smear and put down 1 next to it, indicating that's first, and the spatter, maybe SM for smear, SP for spatter. So in other words, the smear had to come first and then spatter after that.
Yes.
Anything else with respect to this bloodstain pattern?
In addition, a small drop consistent vertical deposit. Those consistent, we say, impact splash pattern. We say angular deposit.
Now, are those, is this smear, is that what you call a dynamic?
Yes, movement, have a lateral movement, dynamic contact.
Is that smear, can that be caused, can a mechanism for that smear be a hand brushing against the envelope?
Speculation, conjecture, no foundation. Sustained.
Is the smear consistent with the mechanism of a hand brushing against the
Same
envelope?
objections, also argumentative. Sustained.
All right. Can you tell us what kinds of mechanisms are consistent with the scientific evidence you see here of that smear?
Same objections.
Yes,
And what kinds of mechanisms?
contact mechanism of this, a surface have to have some wet blood. Has to have a direct contact with a movement. The movement here is from the left to right, in a lateral movement.
Anything else about the bloodstain patterns of interest on the top row? All right, could you please move to bloodstain pattern number 2?
Bloodstain pattern number 2 is depicts the envelope upper, if I face the envelope upper right corner of this envelope. And multiple bloodstain pattern can be seen in this location. Over hundreds of bloodstain can be counted in this area too. The most important observation of this area consists of 3-4 areas. Close-up view number 2A, which depicts this area, a teardrop type of pattern, a vertical droplet pattern, a contact transfer pattern, additional spatter pattern.
Could you please, with the red tape, indicate for the jury the relationship of the close-up view 2A to the bloodstain pattern number 2? Now, so you've indicated here that we have a contact impression.
Yes,
Which one is that?
not the impression, it's a contact pattern.
Imprint pattern. We have a droplet.
Yes,
We have spatter.
yes.
Now, can you tell from this pattern which of these came first?
Some area I can tell, other area I cannot. For example, this one I can tell deposit after this group of pattern has to be applied on the envelope first. It clearly shows this on top, the rest of it. As far this one, I cannot tell when was deposited.
However, could the ones that you can't tell which came first or second, could they have come at the same time?
Some of those more likely from different time.
So your judgment is it's more likely that they came at different times, but you can't tell which came first or second?
Yes, because the angular and vertical droplet cannot be created by same motion here.
Would this kind of blood pattern that we see on 1A and 2A be consistent with struggle in the area, struggle between two individuals around this envelope?
Speculation, conjecture, no foundation.
It could indicate dynamic movement, different time contact, could be consistent with this.
Okay. Any other observations of interest with respect to the close-up on the view 2A?
View 2A, in the lower portion middle, have a place labeled 1-B, something like that, have one drop. This drop, the side appear to be diluted, and a swab motion appear to apply into this drop. This indicates this drop has been sampled by laboratory examiner to type this drop.
And on this photograph, are there initials there?
No, just
There's
one V.
A B,
Yeah.
indication of B. Now, could you move to close-up view 2B? What does the close-up view 2B indicate in terms of the pattern?
Close-up view 2B consists of a heavy blood stand. On top of the blood stand, caked with some soil debris. In addition, numerous hair, fiber-like material adhere on this surface.
Now, what is the fact that this debris, soil and fiber, is caked on the surface, what does that indicate about the mechanism of transfer?
This area indicates blood has to be deposited on an envelope first. Subsequently, the soil, hair, fiber, debris was deposited on top of this blood staining area. And during this drying and coagulation process, this material cake onto the surface.
So this debris came onto the surface while the blood was still wet?
Yes.
Now, Dr. Lee, show you two additional photographs that are not on this board that
1345,
well,
46.
should we make them subdivisions of the board even though they're not on it? It's the court's preference.
No, let's make them subsequent.
Okay. So this would be 13,
47,
47, and 48?
yes.
Show you two photographs that have been marked 1347 and 1348 and ask you if you recognize them.
Yes.
What are they?
It's two pictures which depict 1347, the mid portion of this envelope. 1348 is this faint area of this envelope.
Could you, in the two areas you've indicated, write 1347 in the area depicted in the photograph 1347 and 1348 for the area of 1348? Your Honor, with permission of the court, I'd like to place 1348 first on the honor. I
Proceed.
ask that Dr. Lee approach the telestrator and direct Mr. Harris on focusing in on the areas of interest. Dr. Lee, look. Okay. Please tell us when it's in the correct position.
That's the correct.
Dr. Lee, what pattern is depicted, what kind of pattern is depicted by 1348?
This composite area, which appear to be have some rich pattern on there.
Now that ridge pattern, that is an imprint,
That's an imprint, considered as an imprint pattern.
and that imprint pattern, the ridges, are those consistent with the pattern given by a fingerprint in blood?
Leaving, Your Honor.
Sustain.
What is that consistent with, let's start this way. Dr. Lee, in your observations of evidence at crime scenes, can you make observations from blood patterns with respect to fingerprints?
Yes,
How do you do that?
I recognize the shape, contour, or rich characteristics.
All right. Now, with respect to that, what is your opinion of the pattern depicted on 1348?
All I can report to you is consists of an imprint pattern. I cannot definitively tell you this is a fingerprint.
What about this pattern makes it consistent with the pattern that would be caused by a bloody fingerprint?
Speculation, Your Honor, conjecture, no foundation.
It's have the general contour, have some appear to be certain pattern there, and any of those pattern which indicative a pattern transfer, of course, enhancement will be able to show exact pattern.
Ask that we put now 1347 on the Yeah, we should print this out, I'm sorry. Can we make
Right,
that
that'll be
1348A?
A.
While that's printing out, Dr. Lee, this imprint pattern, would the blood have to be wet at the time this imprint pattern was made?
Yes.
Now ready for 1340. 1347. Dr. Lee, looking at 1347, is this a proper focus?
Yes.
All right. Could you please describe to us the pattern here?
This is a pattern area which we noticed in this exhibit. This pattern area shows here, it's not a drop, it's not a spatter, it's not a smear, there's a contact impression type of pattern. Fiber-like material can be seen adhere onto the surface. This area consists of a large quantity of blood. No rich characteristic can be clearly seen. However, in the middle,
No question.
in the middle, there are some appear to be pattern area, which consistent again with a imprint.
Now, the imprint that you've indicated by the arrows, is that consistent with a bloody finger making the contact imprint that you've indicated there?
Speculation, conjecture.
Sustain.
All right. In terms of the mechanism of transfer, is that imprint pattern consistent with a finger covered with blood making contact with the envelope?
Same objections, and also the drawings.
Sustain.
Again, Dr. Lee, based on your observations of fingerprint patterns at crime scenes, if a finger is covered with lots of blood and makes contact with a paper surface, will it necessarily leave a ridged design?
Characteristics. No, it will not leave any rich characteristics. Once the blood covered the whole surface, fill the lanyard groove of the finger surface. When you have this contact, because abundance of blood, you only leave a general pattern. Will not transfer individual rich characteristics.
Is the pattern depicted here in 1347 consistent with a finger covered with blood to the point that it would make a contact impression in the envelope but not leave rich characteristics?
Same objections also.
Sustain.
All right? In terms of fingerprint impressions, is that consistent with an imprint of a finger covered with blood as you just explained before?
Same objections.
Sustain. Let's move on.
Could you please describe for us, in terms of mechanisms of transfer, how that pattern might be consistent, if it is, with a finger imprint?
Sustain. Dr. Lee, this is a compression transfer, is that correct?
Yes,
All right. Did you examine that carefully as much as you could from the photograph?
yes.
Did you see anything that indicates that that might be a fingerprint?
Not only the contour.
Thank you. Next question.
So from the contour of this imprint, it is consistent with a bloody finger making contact with the envelope.
Same objections.
Overruled.
It consistent with either a finger or an object have same contour called such transfer.
So it's either a finger or an object that has the same contour of a finger.
I think we've
Okay.
covered this.
Would that imprint have to be made when the blood was wet?
Yes.
Dr. Lee, the imprint that you described on 1348, the imprint you've described as 1347, the mirror image you've described under the picture close-up view 1B, are all those consistent with this envelope being manipulated when the blood was wet?
Well, it indicates have contact. Assume those are fingerprint
I'm
pattern.
going to object at this point. I think that this was just all speculation and conjecture.
Overruled. Answer will stand. Next question.
All right. Dr. Lee, assuming that these imprint patterns are consistent with fingerprints, what does this pattern indicate with respect to the manipulation of this envelope when the blood was wet?
Speculation, conjecture, no foundation.
Sustained.
Dr. Lee, with respect to the close-up view 1B and your observations of the glasses and the envelope, could the envelope be folded in that fashion while the glasses were in it?
Calls for speculation, conclusion, no foundation.
Foundation.
Well, were you able to examine the envelope and the glasses?
Yes.
All right. From your observations, could this, what you've described as a mirror image pattern in the close-up view 1B, have been made while the glasses were in the envelope with wet blood on the envelope?
No foundation.
Sustained.
Well, in terms of the fold, with the glasses in the envelope, would the glasses in the envelope prevent this the fold that we see in the close-up view 1B?
No foundation.
Overruled.
If the glass is in this area, very difficult to fall over the glass itself.
Non-responsive.
Overruled.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, for the record, maybe you could have the court indicate what I'm pointing at this time.
Pointed to,
Can I stand up? for a
yes,
second?
you may. Pointed to 1345 1B.
But he said if the glasses were in this area. Could we just have the record reflect where he was pointing when he said that? Your Honor, just for the record, when he was pointing on the evidence-bound eyeglass envelope exhibit, the photograph on the top center, bloodstain pattern 1, approximately bisecting the photograph in what appears to be a fold.
Thank you.
In fact, I would add to that description that the fold begins at the bottom of the picture.
No, counsel, the photograph speaks for itself. Let's move on.
Okay.
Blood transfers are wet. The envelope's been moved around.
Well,
It's at a crime scene. Let's proceed.
well, the mirror image, that's when the blood is wet, correct?
Yes.
We've established that.
We have the next word.
Your Honor, this is 1349, and it's entitled Evidence Found Envelope.
All right, thank you.
And Dr. Lee, could you please explain what these three pictures show?
These three pictures depicts the same envelope. Shows these three pictures were taken at different point of time. The first picture, second picture were provided to me by Attorney Superior. Those pictures depicts here appear to be taken by LAPD photographer. The third one is a picture which I took February 18, 1995 at Albany Medical Center.
Now, Dr. Lee, with the picture in the middle represent, the envelope is shown in the photograph in what we have been calling position number 1.
Yes,
So that is the photograph, the first photograph in time that we know of that envelope.
yes,
And the one to the left is position number 2,
yes,
and the one to the right are the picture taken at Albany Medical Center.
yes.
Okay. Now, could you describe to us some of the differences on these pictures between these envelopes?
The center envelope is this envelope which the first record of it, the first documentation which I can see. On the envelope, near the top region, large amount of trace material. Hair and fiber-like trace appear to be in this area. The one I just showed you previously, here some soil trace material already taken this area. The photograph which I received subsequently, those trace material was found to be absent. It's gone. It's no longer on this surface. The leaf, for example here, it's absent from this location. The leaves underneath this envelope are absent from this location. This piece of material appears to be absent from this location. In addition, I noticed some other changes. The most clear one is here. I see a blood drop in this location, absence, no blood drop.
Could you circle that blood drop, please, that you have indicated is in the envelope on position number 2 that is not in position number 1? Now, Dr. Lee, when you were discussing before the parallel line imprint pattern
Yes,
that we began with yesterday, is that visible in the position number 1 photograph?
yes,
Is the Bruno Magli imprint visible in the position number 1 photograph?
yes,
Are the imprint patterns that were consistent with fingers visible on the original photograph?
This states the testimony.
Oh,
it's appeared in this location, and this location still remain on the surface.
So in other words, those patterns, which you indicated before, had to be made when blood was wet, are in the original photograph of position number 1.
That's correct.
So when those were made, the blood was wet at that time.
Yes,
And to your understanding, is that before anybody came and touched that envelope and processed that scene?
This appears,
Calls for lack of personal knowledge, speculation, conjecture.
Sustain.
Well, have you kept track of the testimony to some degree of the various witnesses in this case?
Vague.
no,
Is it your understanding from the testimony in this case, Dr. Lee, that the crime scene had been processed?
Sustain. It's leading. He's also said he didn't follow the testimonies.
We'll leave that. In terms of the blood stain that you've circled, is there any other stains that on the envelope in position number 1 that weren't there in position
Yeah.
number 2 that weren't there in position number 1?
there are some stands, however, very difficult to make a comparison due to this again is 3-dimensional setting. We look at 2-dimensional picture. I can tell this clearly. This one wasn't there. There are some subtle one, minor one, which I'm not going to testify.
Now, in conclusion, Dr. Lee, from this envelope, can you determine from bloodstain pattern that imprint impressions that you've described were made on it in wet blood in the course of a struggle?
Calls for conclusion, speculation, conjecture,
Overruled.
no foundation.
Assume those are forward, part of forward imprint, which indicative these two has to be deposited when the envelope was on the ground. Assume those material,
At this time, I'm going to object if he's just making a series of assumptions.
Sustain. Next question.
Based on the assumption that the trace evidence and bloodstains as reflected in the envelope on position number 1 were deposited there during the course of the homicides in this case, what does the pattern indicate?
Speculation, conjecture, no foundation.
Overruled.
which indicative a movement and consistent with struggle.
All right. And you're talking here about the Bruno Magli imprint,
Yes,
the parallel line imprint,
yes,
the imprints you've described as being consistent with fingers making contact with the envelope,
The state's testimony.
Sustain.
the imprints on the envelope that you described in 1347 and
At this point,
1348.
counsel's just testifying.
No, he's not. He's asking a question. Proceed.
1347 and 1348.
yes,
And those are all on position number 1.
yes.
Any other bloodstain patterns of interest in this board?
This particular drop, which appear to be grouped, when I examined this envelope in February 1819, which correlate to this drop, which was original absent from the envelope.
And are you aware that conventional serology was done on that drop?
No personal knowledge.
Sustain.
Okay.
2:30.
2:30?
2:30.
I ask that this board be marked defendants next in order.
13:49. I'm sorry, 13:50.
Now, Dr. Lee, does this board reflect something that appears in one of the books you've written?
Yes.
And what is it?
This is steps for forensic examination. The logic sequence when we get to crime scene or examine a piece of physical evidence. That's the required step of process.
Now, I'd ask you to review these steps very briefly and connect it to what was available to you in the course of your investigation in this case and what wasn't.
First step of any crime scene is recognition.
All right, Mr. Scheck, let me ask you a question, just logistically. Given the nature of this chart, is there any reason we can't have Dr. Lee back on the witness stand and with the chart turned the other way?
No, there
So it
isn't.
doesn't block my view?
Oh, okay.
All right. All right, Dr. Lee, why don't you pull the microphone close to you, please? Thank you. Mr. Scheck.
You were discussing the recognition stage and what that means.
First step of any forensic examination of the crime scene or physical evidence have to go through a step called recognition. You have to see it, recognize it, before we can do anything. If any potential evidence, you did not see it, or imprint evidence on certain object, you did not recognize it. Subsequent step become obsolete. Since did not recognize, then we did not go through the identification examination. So recognition is very crucial for any crime scene investigation, for any examination of physical evidence. Once we recognize the particular item have particular importance or potential or value relate to a case, then we go through the next step. The next step is a composition of a lot of sub-steps.
This is an order.
All right, why don't you ask him category by category, Mr. Scheck?
Yes. First, with respect to recognition, when you're saying that that's the most important step, for example, you discussed briefly yesterday how one can go about identifying latent footprints. Do you recall that?
Yes.
All right. Now, just as an example, if one does not carefully examine a scene to find latent footprints, would that be what you would call a failure of recognition?
Yes.
And are failures of recognition withdrawn? And evidence that is not recognized. All right, I'm mindful of the time. Let's move on to the next step, preservation, documentation, and collection. What do you mean by that?
This is a group activity. Have to be performed right after recognition to document the original shape by variety of methods: notes, diagram, photograph, videotaping, description, prior to the collection. Also have to, at the same time, preserve the scientific integrity and the legal integrity of this potential evidence after it recognized.
So would videotaping a crime scene be a method in terms of preservation and documentation?
Yes,
And would keeping accurate notes and with respect to what was collected, when it was collected, and who collected it be the kind of thing that you mean by documentation and collection?
yes.
This point, Your Honor, this is cumulative irrelevant.
Trying to move through it.
Proceed.
What is chain of custody, Dr. Lee?
Overruled.
Chain,
Overruled.
to a scientist, a forensic scientist, chain of custody means start an initial step. We have to keep a record of this, any transaction of this piece of evidence.
All right. Would, for example, counting the number of swatches used to collect the bloodstain be an example of activities in this preservation, documentation, and collection area?
Unintelligible, and it's argumentative.
Overruled.
Yes,
We
What
did
happened-
We did go through a
I'm
majority of
going,
these
moving
things with-
quickly.
with,
What do you
Mr.
mean
Reagan.
by identification?
once the sample collected, submit to the laboratory, first we go through the identification step. Try to use morphological pattern, physical characters, and a simple chemical test to identify a certain piece of material and the nature of such piece of evidence.
And if the preservation, documentation, and collection is not done correctly, does that undermine your ability to do identification?
Yes,
And if the preservation, documentation, and collection stage evidence is contaminated, does that undermine your ability to do identification?
maybe.
What is comparison?
Comparison, once we identify a particular object, for example, a hair, then we'll have known and question hair to compare. With a blood sample, known and question. Soil sample, any type of sample, you need a known and question to make a comparison. Can compare biological property, physical property, microscopic characteristics, and physical characteristics. Try to see, can we make a match?
What is individualization?
Whether or not you can trace to the source origin. For example, simple example, a fingerprint. If you matched all the rich characteristics from a known fingerprint card to a latent fingerprint from the scene, then you say that you individualize it now.
Now, what is meant by the term class characteristics?
A large group of physical evidence at the current stage, there are limitations. We cannot reach a stage called individualization. We can only compare class characteristics, but not individual characteristics.
Would hair and fiber be an example of this?
Here, if just microscopic comparison, that's consistent, not as a individualization, cannot use as a positive identification of an individual.
That's what you would call just class characteristic comparison?
It's a little bit more than class, little lower than individualization.
Now, what is meant by reconstruction?
Reconstruction is after we go through all the steps. Now we start putting together what the significance of this piece of physical evidence fitting in a case, like putting the puzzles together. Can we put the puzzle together and make some sense? Or we cannot put the puzzle together, make any sense.
Now, Dr. Lee, if the recognition stage and the preservation and documentation and collection stage is not performed correctly, what does that do to the ability to do reconstruction.
Asked and answered.
Overruled.
This is the foundation. If you turn this chart upside down, if the foundation, we don't have a foundation, you take the building block away, whatever reconstruction becomes speculation.
So if evidence is contaminated or compromised in the recognition, preservation, documentation, and collection phase, that makes it, undermines ability to do reconstruction.
Yes.
All right, let's move on.
That's it.
$230.
Has this be marked 1351,
All right, what is it?
and it's entitled Trace Material Found on Physical Evidence at Bundy, Soil Sample from Bundy, item 114. Dr. Lee, could you please describe to us what is depicted by the photographs on this board?
This board consists of 4 pictures. Shows a sample numbered 114, soil sample from northwest of gate.
Dr. Lee, it says here soil exemplar. What does that mean?
My definition is a control sample of the soil.
And when you say a control sample of the soil, what would that mean in forensics?
It's an exemplar of soil collected from the sea.
In other words, to determine,
Leading.
Sustain.
all right. Please continue with respect to the photographs here.
Sustain.
All right. What is depicted in the central photograph indicating soil sample examined?
On March 4th, 1995, when I examined this sample, I put a piece of paper, clean paper, remove the soil debris from this envelope. That shows an overall view of those soil samples in this plastic bag.
What do the 2 pictures on the far right represent?
These 2 photographs are photo micrograph, taking the picture through a microscope, which shows besides the soil, there are large amount of trace material present in the soil, this soil sample.
And when you say trace material, what are you referring to?
I see dry vegetation, wood fragment, hairs, pen chip-like material, more hairs, fibers, a large amount of material in this amount.
And when a soil exemplar is taken, is the purpose of that to take it from an area where there is no activity to get a sense of what is generally in the soil? Is that the idea behind it?
Well, cause for speculation.
Oh,
Generally, soil exemplar we're taking at the location which we think have activities.
Okay. So in other words, and what is the purpose of taking such an exemplar?
For example, subsequently you find a shoes, suspect's shoes, you can compare the soil. Or you have hairs, you can compare the hair was original present in the soil or subsequently deposited on the surface.
We'd like to turn now to a discussion of the socks. And it asks that this board be marked defendants next in order.
all right, Mr. Scheck, which...
1352, I believe.
All right.
This first board marked 1352, entitled History of Socks, Item 13, June 13th, 1994 at Rockingham. Briefly, Dr. Lee, what is this?
I don't think there's going to be any foundation for personal knowledge.
Overruled.
He wasn't there.
This board consists of 3 pictures. These 3 pictures were supplied to me by Attorney Superior.
Next question.
All right? Picture number 1 represents what in terms of the bedroom?
Depicts an overall view, shows this corner of the bedroom and the rug on the carpet, the bed, and appear to be in the center of this picture appear to be a pair of socks.
Direct your attention to the picture on the upper right-hand corner.
This picture is taking appear to be a different point of time. We see some changes on the picture. However, this pair of socks appear to be in the middle of this rock.
And what is...
Isn't this redundant of Mr. Ford's testimony?
No, we're going in a different direction now. Call your attention to close-up of 2 socks.
Yes.
And what does that appear to be in relation to the picture above it?
This appear to be a close-up showing this pair of same socks.
Now, is there anything about the way those socks are lying on the carpet that is of interest in terms of subsequent analysis?
Yes.
What is it?
These 2 socks, it's clearly in 2 different locations, not on top of each other. These 2 socks both have a similarity. The top appear to be folding downward. These 2 socks, both sides, the toe area cannot be seen whether or not due to this photograph, 2-dimensional representation, or in reality was tagged in, which I don't know. One sock appeared to be crunched in a 3-dimensional setting. The other one also is not flat. It's also crunched in certain fashion. These 2 socks I cannot determine just by looking at inside out or outside in.
In terms of the proper practices for collection of these socks, what should be done?
If I do it, I cannot say about any other people. These two socks,
Non-responsive.
Oh,
these two socks should be put in two separate bags. However, before I even pick it up, should note it, the condition. Dry, wet, moist, or damp. In addition, should definitely indicate inside out or outside in. The toe stuck inside or not, or exposed. The top, whether or not in fact fall down works or not. A physical description and any obvious trace material or stain should be noted.
Your Honor, you have 2 minutes, and I have another board that'll take longer, so I would suggest for you time.
all right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take our mid-afternoon break at this point. Please remember all my admonitions to you, and we'll stand in recess for 15 minutes. All right, Dr. Lee, you can step down.